the Joe Rogan Experience.
It wasn't even a little bit more protected, in the least, by the filmmaker. I thought the filmmaker kind of threw him under the bus a little bit, but that's just, you know.
How so? He wanted to be in the film.
Yeah, I know. It was weird, though. It started to feel weird.
In what way?
I felt like, I don't know. I mean, like
how could he protect him? By changing his name? The Russians knew who he was.
Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like it was. I don't know. I felt like it was a little reckless as a filmmaker. You know, I just felt like it was a.
What would you do differently?
To tell you the truth, I really don't know what I would do differently. I just felt like, man, this, like, as I'm watching it, going like, man, this guy's going to get in a lot of trouble. He's going to get killed because of this.
He threw me under the bus.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe I did. I don't know. Maybe I do. Maybe I'm just talking on my ass.
Yeah, but you weren't like rigging the Olympics. I mean,
no.
What changed after that was that the Russians essentially are barred from the Olympics, and now they compete under the Olympic flag.
Well, what's interesting is they had Don Catlin in there, and Don Catlin's a guy for America that does the same thing.
Does he?
And he was gonna be the first guy. Remember, then he backed out and he said, "I'll give you the Russian guy," because he knew the Russian guy would talk.
What do you mean he does it for America?
He's the guy that's our doping control. Like
control guy.
He's our what USADA guy or what? He's the guy that did all the drug tests for the Olympics from like the 80s on.
Right, but he's not the guy that dopes up the Americans.
No,
you
he doesn't.
Be really clear when you say that.
He doesn't dope them up. He's the guy that tests them.
Right. We should tell people what Icarus is too, if they don't know what we're talking about. So this would be a standalone podcast. It's a documentary that Brian Fogel made where he decided to ride his bike in a race completely clean, and then do it on steroids to see what his times would be, how much benefit he would have. And in the process of him filming this documentary, the guy who hooked him up, this guy Grigory from Russia, who was the head, unbeknownst to him, of the Russian state-sponsored doping program. He was like, he thought he was getting a guy who was like the Russian USADA, that was going to tell him what the cheaters use. But it turned out, along the way, everything got exposed, and he was like, look, I've did this for 40 years. I dope everybody on drugs. And like he said, every fucking single athlete that was in the Olympics was on some shit. And then he explained how they did it, and everybody's like, what the fuck? And then they were going to pull the Russians. And then the other thing that he exposed is the collusion between WADA and the IOC, and that they all work for each other, and they switch fucking roles, and they go back and forth with each other, and that they're not going to punish the Russians, and that but what they're doing now is they kind of have to, because all of that movie. I mean, that movie literally changed the Olympics.
I guess what I'm saying is, when I did Bigger, Stronger, Faster, and we're going around talking to the experts, you know, a lot of the experts, they would mention Don Catlin, and I'd be like, what's up with Don Catlin? And they'd say, oh, man, if you get him to talk, I mean, the sports world will just crumble. And everybody kept saying that. Like, I heard it from like 4 different people that are experts. They just said, like, nobody would believe in sports if that guy exposed what he knew. And so then I interviewed Don Catlin, but he just laughed when I asked him that. He's like, they don't know what they're talking about, you know, kind of thing. And
I gotta go.
Yeah, I'll see you later. I'll see you guys later. And I said, well, look, Charles Gasalis is an expert. He said the whole sports world would crumble if they knew what you knew. What do you know? And he said, I don't know anything. You know, and so it was kind of just, I mean, you're never going to get an answer like that. Something has to get exposed through a different way. So I can't say beyond a shadow of a doubt that that's the truth, but I'm suspicious of that guy, I should say, and suspicious of our system. I don't think they're the only ones doing it.
There's no way they're the only ones doing it. China had a record number of gold medals when they hosted it.
But
in Beijing.
I think we're doing it just as bad as they are.
I wonder.
I mean, we're doing it better, obviously. We're not getting caught. But I mean,
so when you say we, do you think there's a state-sponsored
American
doping program like they have in Russia?
I don't think state-sponsored, but I think like maybe
there's some people doing something somewhere.
Yeah, there's some sort of network going on.
Some shenanigans.
Look, if there's one Balco, there's 10.
Right.
There's got to be more than one Balco.
Oh, yeah.
You think so?
There's got to be more than one guy that's like, you know, telling people what to take.
There's a lot of that shit out there.